I prostrate, make offerings and thanks for refuge to the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the destroyer, completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, the supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer of the shattered cloud. I prostrate, make offerings and thanks for refuge to the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the shattered cloud. I prostrate, make offerings and thank for refuge. When no supreme amongst humans you were born on this earth, you passed out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you all I speak, I prostrate. With pure bodies formed supremely pure. Wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds. Winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like spotless moon, power like gold, to you I prostrate. Thou supreme like you, the 3 worlds unlocked, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior that great compassion, man hath of all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one gone to vastness I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime reality, to the Dharma that pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated also shew the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts. To you, the sublime community intended virtue, I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all 3 every devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bow with bodies as many as all realms, atoms, and all aspects. With supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, the flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the foul faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. To page 15 for the Heart of Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. I prostrate to the Arhat. Thus did I hear at one time the Bhagavan was dwelling on Vasudeva's mountain in Rajragiya, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration of the practice of the non-corporeal perfection. Also at that time, the bodhisattva Vyasadeva and the Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, and beheld those high predicates also executing the merit nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the venerable Share of Perfection said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasata Arya Avalokiteshvara: How should any son of a lineage trained who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasata Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the venerable Sharadavaputra: who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly appreciating the field of those high aggregates also executing the merit nature. All these energy is form, emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Sharaputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness. Without characteristic, not producing, sustaining, not
Putra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no result of wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the endpoint of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as the truth since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Taya Taya Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should trade in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoiced. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharadaviputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. To page 25 for the short mandala. Sashi Poke Chukshik Me Tok Tram
Rera Lenshi Ninde Genbandi Sanje Waye Drago Nanda Shinla Chupa Sho
Jetsa Lama Dampa
Kinam Ye Chugun Kala Jinze Jinjin
Jeta Sambe Duju Zimala Zake Chuki Chapa Baptu So Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniriyatayami.
Sanje Chudan Saji Chanana Chanjo Bado Dani Jasa Dake Chujin Jive Sonam Je Dola Benji Sanje Do Sanje Chudan Saji Chanana Chanjo Bado Dani Jasum Je Dake Chujin Jive Sonam Dola Benji Sanje Do Bara Sanje Chudan Saji Chanana Chanjo Bado Dani Jasa Dake Chujin Jive Sonam Je Dola Benji Sanje Do Bara Shu Kange de zenye zenye dawa de je pa me chiri de me shi ne den ze. Kodan de la je de la do nyen nyen je zan de je we la chi chi se de ka je den de cha na be mo den de cha. So de za je ne lan de jo ba de za la ma ran bo je da de. Chi ro ben de ne jo ne ga de je me go ne je zan de go zan do je ngo do ze do so. Hai da zo ta ji ran zo ma che ku long kom ta ran sho be gyab sa yi ra. En tanda ngana zo chö di da chö xiewa chiya ki xierab jiwa chiya la ane pada chö chi zo di diba saya dire dikdip lo su su dikdip changwa chiya la ane yu choba chin so shing saya damni dila dine ane chik sa jang sonam sakwa dang dikwa shakwa dine chigi yu yin ti chi diyo nge di lama chö we kosa gandela ji so shing saya dab chimbe ngane ane Tongpo Tsoxing said that
Most of you will probably have already done a motivation this morning, and we need to purify obscurations and non-virtues, because that is what stops the production of wisdom. And in order to purify non-virtues and obscurations, we need to have a basis, which is the merit field. The field of merit is right in front of us. So regarding that merit field, we're going to do the twofold merit accumulation and purification practice. So we'll go through now on page 53, the yoga.
Go the choosing set of something. Tesha. After my turn.
So just recite up to the verse. I request you to come here now, and then that will be explained. Okay? On page 53.
I go for refuge to the triple gem. I shall liberate all sentient beings to lead them to an enlightened state. I generate a purely enlightened motive. I go for refuge to the triple gem. I shall liberate all sentient beings to lead them to an enlightened state. I generate purely enlightened motive. I go for refuge to the triple gem. I shall liberate all sentient beings to lead them to an enlightened state. I generate purely enlightened motive. May the surface of the earth in every direction be pure without even a pebble, as smooth as the palm of a child's hand, naturally polished as is lapis lazuli. And may all space be completely filled with the material offerings of gods and men, both these set before me and those mentally created, as a peerless cloud is surrounded by those offerings. From the heart of the protector of the hundreds of deities of the land of joy comes a cloud that resembles a mass of fresh white curd. Omniscient Losong Dragpa, King of the Dharma, together with your sons, I request you to come here now.
Other did session said of a teacher. That in a ma yenla dumba, yenla dunur, yenla dunjikone, and it mendeda was. That's Sajak native was yenla dus. So magic la kanla tsama yuna, and it lega shukchumbuchidora. Tenanshi yenla dunjikone, and it Yangele made of a sword of Serva. And the ne chatseva, ne chatsevadang, ne chuvadang, ne shagwadang, Jiziranda, Chongokovatang, and no washy. And Yangele made a swording in the Dosavina, Yela doing said what it is. Tigone, and Dandang, so Yangele made a sword that's washing set of Shayara de. Yangele, the Madavachi doing that Shurochi is. The use of the Lamada Dendela of the Sendip Chiguadi, Ruachu Sunji Shurochi, etc. That in any Chatseway in La Dunginangalayane, Choju Java said and Java Tela Yeloyane, Rajalunga Yisongi, and Chatseva said the Kuvedu veteran. Kuvedu, the Luge Kuvedu, Ngaj Kuvedu, Yitu, Kuvedu was. Said Chatseva de. Any Luigi large degree sum jayala go Javajan de Yores. The ne Chatseve sonam de ya sonam Chatseva and young element of a sword or dig. Any chuba ya chuba pujeva Shinja Chungujo. You won't churn as I said near Marwa, you won't churn as a method that teaching the another teachers. Any day chuba de la and was shamba the Nangazo de churn as a method not just teach up to a teacher. And the was one of the Masue, Chovanamba Nazo Yapu, and Chuvapula de Dunjinangagi, and should give us a javet in the Samegi Teda said to Ladine, and she said, Lunga is on the deep chance on some of the days, she some of the distance Manganema, and Tinamachas and Tunshos.
So now, okay, now I have. So first, with regards the merit accumulation and purification with regards to this practice, first is the request, or requesting the merit field to be here now, which we have just done. And following this are the 7 limbs. The 7 limbs are akin to a person that has all their limbs, or all their faculties can do a job very well. It is the same with these limbs. If we have all the limbs complete, we can collect merit and purify well. The first one is requesting the gurus to not pass into parinirvana, but to remain and teach the doctrine. The second limb then is offerings. The second limb then is prostration. And then after that comes offerings. Following that is rejoicing. Purification. Then rejoicing. And then turning the wheel of Dharma, requesting. And finally, the seventh one is the limb of dedication. So just these first three. Firstly, requesting that the teachers remain and teach the Buddha Dharma is important, because by requesting them to stay, that creates the cause to hear the doctrine. The second limb of prostration is homage, which is the limb of respect. So one can pay respect and prostrate with body, speech, and mind, so physically, verbally, and mentally. The next limb is making various offerings, both actual and mentally arranged. The actual ones we have here on the left, in front, water and so forth, lights, incense, flowers. And then you're also offering those things that are owned and not owned in this world. So you can imagine all types of wonderful offerings. Yeah, so we can recite down to there. Oh, recite it all. We can recite all of them now, all of the verses, yeah.
O venerable gurus with white smiles of delight, seated on lion thrones, lotus and moon in the space before me, I request you to remain for hundreds of eons in order to spread the teachings and be the supreme field of merit for my mind of faith.
Your minds have the intellect that comprehends the full extent of what can be known. Your speech, with its excellent explanations, becomes the air ornament of those of good fortune. Your bodies are radiantly handsome with glory renowned.
I prostrate to you whom to behold,
hear, or recall is worthwhile. Pleasing water offerings, various flowers,
fragrant incense, light and scented water, an ocean of actual and visualized cloud-like offerings I present to you, O supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtues
of body, speech, and mind,
I have accumulated from beginningless time,
and especially any transgressions of my 3 vows,
I confess again and again with fervent regard from my heart.
From the depths of our hearts we rejoice, O protectors, in the great waves of your deeds, you who strove to learn and practice in this degenerate age,
and made life meaningful by abandoning the 8 worldly feelings. O holy and venerable Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained.
I dedicate whatever virtues I have ever collected for the benefit of the teachings and all sentient beings,
and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losong Dragpa
to shine forever, by directing to the fields of Buddha this mandala on a base resplendent with flowers, saffron, water, and incense, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, and the sun and moon. May all sentient beings
be led to these
fields.
Idam
Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. I send forth this jewel mandala to you, precious gurus, by the force of having requested in this way.
Hollow rays of white light are emitted from the hearts of the Venerable Father and his 2 sons, the ends of which combine into one and enter the crown of my head. By the white nectar, the colour of milk,
that comes through the pathway of the tube of white light, I am cleansed of all sickness, disturbance, non-virtues, obstacles, and your instincts without exception, and my body
becomes
as
pure
pure
and
as
as clear as crystal.
Have a look this far, great treasure, not aimed at true existence.
And Vishnu, master of flawless wisdom, as well as Vajrapani, destroyer of the hordes of demons without exception. O Sankapa, crown jewel of the sages of the land of the snows, Lo Samdrapa, I make repeat.
Mimi zewe di
Tu
jen
tu
jere
jenu
se,
si,
tu
tu
mi
mi
jembe
jempe
wangpo
wampo
jembe
jampe,
yang, dobu ma lu jenze sawen,
jen
hanje gewe
jebe
zo jen
tujin
zongo
sankapa,
ba, lo
lo
san
sandrape
trape sha lo
shalas.
so di. Mimi zewe di jen jere, tu mi jembe wangpo jembe yang, dobu ma lu jenze sawen da, hanje gewe zo jen zongo. Lo san trape sha lo so di. Mimi zewe di jen jere se, tu mi jembe wangpo jembe. Dogo male jenze zavenda kanjin kewe zo jin zangwa. Lo zang dawe jang zang di mimi zewe di jin jiren zin di mi jimbe. Dogo male jenze zavenda kanjin kewe zo jin zangwa. Lo zang dawe jang zo. Mimi zewe di jin jiren zin di mi jimbe wangpo jimbe yang. Dogo male jenze zavenda kanjin kewe zo jin zangwa. Lo san trape sha la so de mimi zewe di jin je teme jimbe ungo jame yang dogo ma lu jin ze sa wen da kan je kewe zo jin zangwa lo san trape sha la so de mimi zewe di jin je teme jimbe ungo dogo ma lu jin ze sa wen da kan je kewe zo jin zangwa lo san trape sha la so de 아야다 곰 잡제 욱중을 된배 곰잡 아니 림지난가라 제약세스 조 주에 조지 제약세다 제와 대다 도가네 마베세트 디스스 나군이네야 텐르드네 류지네 나자당 심미동에다 두스 상마 아니 베데 우파단 두스 파테 니 라마 제약세다 제와게 투비오기 구성도기 진라 믹스에드네 찬주가 셈다 닝지 전부다 돈이도 왜 셰럽 계약은 누가 쳐와진지 중송 체 어두스 콤데스 잡샤스라.
So, now combining the meditation of the breathing exercise with visualization, visualizing again in the space in front the principal figure Lama Tsongkhapa with enlightened beings surrounding the two suns and other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. From their heart, white or light comes down and enters into your nostrils, filling your body and mind, so any physical defects are purified and mental sufferings and so forth are dispelled, and latterly you get or accomplish the qualities of body, speech and mind of the enlightened ones, specifically the qualities of bodhicitta, uncontrived altruism, great compassion, the wisdom, consciousness, realizing, emptiness. Think that specifically those potencies are accomplished.
어, 당은 저 닝지 됐어. 지금 얘기인데로. 당고 수수의 동에 저라 삼노다. 수수랑이 동에 삼노다운 삼이 동에 텐데글로. 아니 동에 유당 제발 삼노다. 안 동에를 태와시 토바치고도 삼. 대나신 심제신 수수 예용 다 동에 윤조던데 ten야에는 배우고요. 미그 통하다 암저 태워던데 유나. 되면은 심지 지기 동에 개가나지 동에 여러가 동해 주에 동해 아니 당연하죠 용라게 심기 동해 뭐 쉽지 도와 게제시다 하고도 알아지 지유 스트레스 앵자이티 투상의 동해로 와다 동해도 삼라야 단계는 저 동해를 텐나지 뭐로 삼배 이제와 실리기도 민도 직다더라.
Let us now reflect, meditate on compassion. So firstly, thinking of one's own difficulties and suffering, and may one be free of the causes, be separate from them. So thinking of the reality of your difficulties, but also being separate from them, how you wish not to have them. And then like that, thinking of beings around you, your immediate surrounding beings, the sentient beings. And specifically when you hear of their sufferings, when you see them through your direct experience, if you cannot do that, then just think of suffering in general, that we have to experience birth, aging, sickness, and death, and undergo change. It's true, mentally, there are lots of sufferings, there is stress, anxiety, worries, and so forth. Now, point is to check, does the thought to naturally separate those beings from that come in your mind or not?
아당은 두 삼다는 닝지제 하고 요레스. 다 닝지제 탑란라 가르쳐 올라데 다 도와 심지 수수미기 통화다 퇴바다. 그래서 다 미래리리체 삼다한테는 소화제를 야가 요레스로. 아니 딜라야 저도 당문한저 당보 당용 삼다한테 저도 미 맞지봐. 직바인 바지 삼다야 당보 인터넷 대화도 동의미 되버인 바지봐. 즉 튼두단 튼델 삼다한테 어저 튼두다 미지바인 라요 뭐라. 저 대화도 보다 동의미 되버인 바지봐. 아니 되네 다 가딩이 차지 삼다. 와 세대 기생 쉐어나신다 델 수수 삼다만다 남주 쉐르 내가 펜 가르가르 터다 타두 펜 가르가르 터도 다 겨왕아지 이제나니 아니 빼미시야고 요래 세대기 거든 치슈 지야세 다 타테나시 심지 탐제기 말을 거든 총으로 삼단토이나 아니 심지 신이 동에 통화삼지 아 동에다 태워 등에 지기 세 저들이야게다 곰자단 림바디 남보 아무도 곰자단 림바디 시행으로 당긴 안한서 직접 연구민도 가다 다디네마 땅뇽다 네 마시 틴 소스야. 오 디에디 냠네다 발음 도단디 발음디 장에다 삼노당 아니 곰잡다 곰잡잡 다디 냠뇨 제곰라디 잖네 아니 수수 심나라야 초알이야 당 심나라 저알이야 근데 심나라 레비나 아니 되네 원에 류가게 줘봐도 가랑슈게 쉬운 거여서 심나라 저면은 가져 지가시네 연구만 같아요. 어두스에다 곰데스 잡샤 당뇨네 마시라.
To think of cultivating compassion in such a way is quite difficult in terms of the method. Those that you see and hear, kind of generally, what's more important is that it is done individually, like going through beings step by step and starting with, as we mentioned yesterday, the equanimity. So thinking that this person is the same as oneself and that they are human. And secondly, our second reason was that just like you, they want to be happy. And just like you, they do not wish for suffering. When you are reflecting on animals, you will think on this point. Of course, you're not reflecting that animals are just like you in shape and so forth. But then our other reason yesterday was that really what's important is to think how kind those beings have been to oneself. They have been kind to you in a temporal sense, but also in a more long-term ultimate sense. And then over and above that, if you have a conviction in past lives, this is very good, because then the beings who've been very close and very kind to you in this life, you can extend the same reasoning, thinking that in the past, each and every being has been kind to me just like that. And then the thought will come, may they be free from that suffering. So those steps then are very important. Those stages to go through. Firstly, beginning with equanimity. Secondly, that they have in fact been your kind mother. Next, they're kind and how to repay those kindness. So what we do initially is become commensurate with the steps. We study them and we meditate on them through analytical meditation, and slowly starts to move. You get feelings, you're moved by that. And then when you're moved by those steps of analysis, it's the natural that the body and speech becomes more peaceful. If not, then there's no change in behavior. If your heart is not affected. Please meditate on that, beginning with equanimity.
아야다 심지 신이 동에 세야기 누가 알라면도 다제 심지 신이 동행을 세야기 누가 인조디 산제 냐지르샤 디에치 동에 심지 신이 동에 세야기 치도 산제지 고마 타도지 고마 알바 로앙랑즈 미신래 디기 두버치벌라 당고 수수줄라 디기 거로 미신이 셈시버 두버치벌라 수수줄라 셈시버 거로 버바 수수 셈 마시버지 미셈 신이 셈시버 소토고 말하다 제가 디 인중에 심지 신이 셈이 동에서 디기 두야 치 어느 산지 고마 터버치기 스타 닐 매바인 제네 지지 곰다 직접 쇼스로 찬주기 셈 델라 찬주기 셈 냠내스고요다 지단 단계디게 상말에다
Now the thought to analyze, does one have the ability at the moment to actually do that, to remove the suffering of other beings? No, one does not. Only a fully awakened being, a Buddha, does. So therefore the thought comes, I myself must become awakened to that state of Buddhahood in order to do that. It's true, isn't it? You can't really help others attain their happiness of mind if you yourself are not happy. First, you yourself have to have mental peace and happiness. So then the thought comes to remove their suffering by becoming awakened. And that then is the thought of bodhicitta practice.
하야다 셈 제네 심지 탐제시 산지 고마 터버치기인서 산지 고마 사야되네 규데위인 버려와 되부선다 아니 규카를 내용 거서는 규디네 소남소다 시 소에 돌리총 대야네 진소 파진 투기 냠네 진바츠든 소바 삼디 준주 어디에 되라 소남이소 셔럽지 냠네 제와드네 이시기소 어디 용구여 딘즈다 셈께네 줘발라 라바사야데 아니 단당한서 디네마 셈지 당군이와스 뭐사야데 얘네 전주 셈베 사당군이와스 뭐라 자로 다 디와시위시위시에데네 바자도 셰그레 되래 신고에도 개좀 물어 네 당하나도 뭐였어 말한서 초연나네 네 지소 파진 두기 냠네 가르치에도 디가나 아끼지 시에지 도샤나 야고 요레스로
Yeah. Having cultivated what's called the mind generation, the thought to place beings in Buddhahood, you then have to understand we're going for that resultant stage of Buddhahood. Buddhahood is a result. So what then is the cause of Buddhahood? Buddhahood is the result of both the collections of merit and wisdom, and then having generated the altruistic thought to place all beings in Buddhahood, the bodhicitta, engaging in and training in the 6 perfections. So, generosity, ethics, patience, effort, concentration, those on the method side, and then wisdom, making the wisdom side. So then you actually have to train in the deeds. So although we cannot train in them kind of in an excellent sense at the moment, we must understand that the bodhisattvas are training in them progressively as they go through those grounds from the 1st to the 10th ground we mentioned yesterday, those bhumis. when we study that, we're like getting the imprints of that. What's more important is if we discuss these paramitas with regards to how we can practice them in our daily lives. Yes.
다운도 조 셔럽 기념년 지야들 때네 니로디 다 동이 고미야 그런 봐 동이 뒤조 셔럽 된다 심지 두배 거둘 조 셔기요 다 셔럽지 셔럽 가리 셔럽 동이도 ပဲ셔럽 다디 동이도 ပဲ셔럽 곰바치요라 당연히 단다 곰다를 못디스 말하나로 다 당봉은 시림지 에네 nga세야디 하고 그래라 nga세야디 간사세야디 간사세야디네 친이 탄다 그래라디 부모하고 가르라 때네 따서 nga세 쓰고요레디 친이리 데라 당고 다시 부모하고 가르했다디 말하지 길에 여바디 당부 부모한테 시행고래서로
So essentially, in terms of the wisdom practice of those perfections, it is concerned with meditating on emptiness, the lack of intrinsic nature. So then the question is, how do you do that? How do you meditate on emptiness, cultivate wisdom? First, you have to understand that the I or a person is the basis that you're using for a reference point. So then the question is, what is a person? A person, by definition, is that which is merely labeled in dependence upon the 5 aggregates. So what are the 5 aggregates? What are these 5 heaps? We need to know. We have them.
나디 셔run용분나라 바바제레식 땅 아니 셔르부 티워티데디 제단데조 산제에게 제바사디 땅한테 로유라 데브리라고 얘기하려고 하잖아 좀 내데 띵이질라 냠바슈 냠샤데게 진질로베 또기 냠샤데 뉴베 또기 셔르부 바바제레식을 티워티 제레식이 아니 셔르부 렌자와도 상마 산제지 토기 꾸제로 라마메 발라 집에 니 마추셰 연구요지 서셔로 다도저 사밀리 데브레 티워 같이레라데 니 셔러지 버르지 다 산제지 고만토 발 람카리 냠는 쳐고레스요 와 시진라 고레스니 시기도 와서 시진라 고이나 람 냠네 가르쳐 고레스도 니 보버제레스기 델라 렌 가르자레라데 아니 부모가 되다 그런 신동만 남아 양다고 지스다고 송도체다 부모가 되다 대당 아니 라지 동만 남아 양세데 부모가 되다 라 양라시세 양세데 아니 부모가 왔다 때네 딱에 딱 나디 라신지 되게 동마마세 텔라데베 딱주 부모가 되야 라신지 되게 동마 텔라다고 그랬다 라신지 동바 따와라 아니 당 부모가 되 가리 임바 신고가 나 가리 거 신고라 그러면서 탭디 약보를 두자르션 당부 탭싱고라로 대나신 당부 아니 부모하고 가는 때는 부모하고 라신이 동바레스 당 아니 나라신이도 동바레스 시바시발라 아 부모하고 가래 telladimbe 따줘 나 가래 어디 신고요 그래서 나 데레다 전다 도로로 어디 데레로
Yeah. So this notion of the 5 aggregates is alluded to in the Heart Sutra that we just recited, in a discourse between Shariputra and Chinrezig. And as was mentioned yesterday, it is one of the deeds of the Buddha that from within Buddha's single-pointed concentration, through the blessings of that samadhi, through the power of that samadhi, such a discourse was able to have taken place between Shariputra and Chinrezig. So Shariputra asks to Chinrezig, in this context, with the Buddha present, or due to the Buddha's blessing, which was automatic, how does one attain Buddhahood? By which means does one attain to the state of perfect and complete Buddhahood? To which the reply was, one must train in the perfection of wisdom. the wisdom gone beyond. So therefore, firstly, one has to know what is being examined as a basis to train in, to get to that wisdom gone beyond. So then you have to know what is the I or self referred to in this analysis, and what are the aggregates that make it up. So it's very important to know those two things, because you have, as it says in the Heart Sutra, on page 15, the second verse down, also at that time the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those 5 aggregates also. That word there, also. So also is empty of inherent nature. Here, not only is the self, the I, lack true existence, but also the basis upon which we label I, the aggregates, also lack true existence. It's a bit like we have a book, right? The book is the basis, and on top of the book you say, oh, it's good or it's bad. Similarly, you have to understand that not only is the I empty, but the basis, that is the attributive base of the person, the aggregates are also empty. Yeah, we should meditate. Today's meditation is very easy. Yes.
De lu de singana nya je de tuguduna andinde lu timbena na nya tumi gi timba de la timba dan shirap taje che ne de lu maris taje che shirap gi taje che ani de shirap gi taje che shaba de timbe yul nya tugudu wa de le ya da lu timba nya wa sha wa sa de what in this ko resro.
This meditation we're doing then is close placement of mindfulness of body. Firstly, we are examining our own bodies, the form, by first examining the head, eyes, and so forth, down, scanning down through the torso, arms, right down to the feet. So basically, you can't see the heart, but you scan it, those organs and so forth. So you're doing a body scan, and once you've scanned the whole body, you hold what's in the body in your mind. So that holding is the single-pointed placement or mindfulness part, but with another part, you're doing an analysis with the wisdom part. What is there? So part of the mind is holding, and part of the mind is analyzing. Two function. One should know that one's body, from the aforementioned 5 aggregates, is the form aggregate. Yeah. So for our purposes, just recognizing that's what the body is, form aggregate.
Luji ne khan roma jigla ani semde newe neja ledu chowa legdoro
Ale
odile ya ne chowa ta chowa de ha mo na ne tanda nime chikbe chowa kyawe chowa ne tobe chowa ani semji majiba de majiwe chowa tuzula ne chowe phungbo so da phungbo niwa 수풍부제 초외풍부 수풍부데 단단한저 류라고도 제디
Yeah,
제단지
yeah.
다드네 ene samlogic daamdiyo ne ji nyowa damanda jeeyong godwa odiye changmatta dilya ne nyowa dila chowe phungbo yimba di sheba cheduna ane chowa nyowa di gana simne jeduna chowa thembanya ba sha wasa dilo thembanya sha chowa thembanya ba sha wasa dilda
Now, understanding then that the first aggregate is the form, the body, but then checking respectively through the body, you might have sensations or feelings come up with regard to a particular part of the body. Well, even something like the sun on your face, heat or cold. There are those feelings, sensations, but also mental ones. You could be feeling sad. So you are then aware of these feelings and sensations. And through that experience, you concentrate on that, and that becomes close placement of mindfulness on feelings. The feelings then are our second aggregate.
다드네 먼저 초와라 셈데 네툼디 ne dine ma ne dushi di yagore di dujare ro di ringbore di tongdongre di ningjore di ningjo mare seag yawachinyi ji shewachto odile ya ne dushi ji phungbo sumba de resro
Then, in dependence on recognizing feeling, we might come to think, oh, this is long, this is short, this is good, this is bad, and so forth. The mind is discerning or discriminating. This is the third aggregate of discrimination. Yeah, when one starts to do close placement of mindfulness of mind, one starts to discern those discriminations.
다 게네베 두시에도 파예지 심나라지 tenya스르지 매든죠 tenya미시 칸 매든죠 신용도 딜려야다 남시 심세리기 차네 다디 템바냐샤 류 템바냐샤 초 템바냐샤 두시 템바냐샤 두즈젤라네 아니 셈디 하고라서 세리기 차지 하고와치 아니 하고와디 세리 차디 하고와디 마제와 체제 데데베 내가들라 아니 셈템바냐샤 요레스로
Then there are times when those discriminations and discernments cease, they dissolve, and there is like a vacuity, and the mind's nature manifests, the mind's true nature of clear and knowing. Right, so that is close. Well, recognizing mind as clear and knowing is the close placement of mindfulness of mind, and that is the aggregate of consciousness.
다드네 심나라 되자다 시당다 콘로다 마제다 타도다 근데 요 신고도
Yeah.
도저 상마 카레스나 안 뒤지기 풍부 세드다
And then within mind, there are these emotions that come up, desires, attachment. We have anger, we have jealousy. This is the fifth aggregate of associated composites, compositional factors.
닝제다, 셰랍당, 참바당, 준주당, 도저 상마야 야게셔다 누가 지냐마시 야가 되듯 셰라. 도저 아니 뒤지기 풍부레스.
Well, let's go down the positive side. Great compassion, wisdom, love. These are all compositional factors, the fifth of the aggregates, fifth of the five.
어디 풍부하디 땅 안저 줄라 두가디 말한줄이 줄라 요레스 풍부하디로.
And we have those five aggregates with us.
다드네 나슬라디 땅도 디 나스미디 풍부하고 가로라 때네 따고 좀 시레서 왔다. 당분간도 다녀야 돼요. 나시행오라다, 나시행오라 당분.
Yeah. What is I then? I is merely labeled in dependence upon those 5 aggregates. Well, we're talking about a conventional I, correct?
당분간도 속에 속 풍부할 때인데, 네, 속에 류디 푸기 류이나 미디 푸리스로. 아니 밀류디나 미레스, 푸인자 푸리스, 포몰류디나 포모레스. 라고도.
Yeah.
다가라 민다고도 거네 전으로.
Yeah. So that notion of labeling, merely labeling, right there, if the body is male, we say, oh, that's a male. If the body is female, we say, oh, that's a female or human.
앵간도 스부릉 보이나? 미디 스부릉 보. 미디 스부텐데. 근데 라고로 알아?
Yeah, and if the body is long, we say, oh, he's long. Or if the body is short, we might say, oh, he's short.
진짜 류디를 되네 민디 다기도 하다.
Yeah, so just in dependence upon the body, the label comes, doesn't it? Designated.
다디네 디 시베션에 셔도 아니 미디 참바도 미디 빼야고요. 그래서 미디 참바 찬심 첨부요. 그래서
Kind, yeah.
닝지 첨부요. 그래서 미디 빼 시와요. 그래서 라병보다 연대
Yeah,
야가 얘기.
yeah, yeah.
아니 도게 저들도 미디 컨트롤 사워요. 미디라 니 지지요. 니 요르스죠. 세상 그 주기 셈게 아니 균도들 되는 아주 민디 따기도 하다.
And then, upon knowing the person's character, really, we're talking about the mind, isn't it? So we can say, oh, he's a kind person, a loving person. The person is disposed with great compassion. It's a peaceful person. Or conversely, they're quick to anger, they're jealous, there's lots of pride. So we're talking about the mental qualities here.
제가 나스니데 부모하고 가는라 때네 따고라. 부모가 다시 부모하고 가는지게 질레질레 때네. 아니 나세 민디 따고요. 미시지게 부모하고 가는지나네. 도도 수풍부대 가르베스는 말에 소여 풍부대 가르베스는 말에 남시 풍부대 가르베스는 말에 서로 레레레 제게. 때는 말에서는 다들 기부쌈이 주미 대나시 풍부 날라다 풍부 날라 먼저 풍부에 가르스나 중화시다 중주시기 단위 믹스에 감투 상감 중간매가 누가 남시 남게 감투를 되네 네 감투를 되네 다담지레데라 제가 아니 감투레르네 레베스나야 말했어 어디래다 단다른 지트에는 기부쌈이 주미 메멜로면 남시 많이 그러면 텔레신베 기부가 텔레신베 기부가서는 기부 감투 디베치스 감투 디벨 때네 다우산지네 기부 시작도 알아.
Yes, yes.
This one. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You.
So it is the case then that the I just depends on those aggregates, those bases. Just merely depends on them, because you wouldn't say that the I is the body. You wouldn't say that the I is the feelings, and so forth. You wouldn't say that the I is just the mind as a kind of solid, findable I. But you can say that I is just designated upon those 5 aggregates we mentioned, in the sense that the I is based on earth, water, fire, air, just labeled upon those bases of elements and that which is arisen from elements, as well as consciousness and space, because we hear from Nagarjuna, the person is neither earth, nor water, nor fire, nor air, nor space, nor consciousness. What other person is there except for that? The person is just an amalgamation of those things, or designated upon the amalgamation of those things put together.
어디 당보디 타녀디 땡언주 단다디 나서야 될 니샤오래 타녀디 왜 나서야 돼 어디 레스타로.
Yeah, so what we're doing firstly is recognizing what is the self, the conventional I.
지난 데라 풍문가 남샤데 야고지 신 제장주 뒤주 전반에 샤시디다 남부 산지와 탐지기 실행 레서 전반에 샤데 동반이 더야 그 탑초트 교래다 다다다 루도로 고야도
Laril. So that's important to be able to recognize those 5 heaps, those 5 aggregates. Because the best method to realize emptiness is to meditate on the 4 close placements of mindfulness in conjunction with those very 5 aggregates. Yeah, what's being said is that there's a clear connect there. Let's go to the questions. Why do they say development of affectionate love and compassion are stronger in the exchanging self and others practice? Dashin namke kewan la tene jamningje shukche yorwadi. The gimsin karena.
제대로와다. 그래서나 아니 먼저 되게 라지버진 신예버 도시하고 열어봐. 신을 남매단 거 열어봐. 다 대마에 버치지 수수제버 난신지 신의 제버지나 아니 다 할래버로다.
All right.
서부쇼려면 돼.
Is it not clear that in terms of the self, we tend to cherish ourselves and disregard others, look down on them even sometimes, but if those are reversed, if we cherish others more than ourselves, that's a very powerful, that should speak. Yeah, how powerful would it be if just as you cherish yourself, you cherished others, you know? Now, when you have cultivated great compassion, when you have uncontrived, unfabricated bodhicitta, you have no suffering. Is there a specific order to the giving and taking of the Tonglen practice? Kisla Tonglen, Tongpo Lengre, Yang Mena Pate Gore.
Dila Dinde Yoro. Did you mare dela kuring ever care mare, Tonglen you Pemar Jang Sondo. Pena Deve Pongbe Simjina, Tangbo Dewa de Tang Dungene Arwa. Ta did Su Tang, Su Tanya de Cutting Waters na, Ani Lembe Miguela Dene, Ningji Migwa Jang Yorwa, Shinji Dunge, Su Lion, Shin Dunge the Teve, Zawas, Ningji at Yeto Warriors.
Yeah, Su Lion.
Some Tango Tiwa Marwa, Su Lion, Zangala, Shinji Dunge, Su Lion, Shin Dunge the Teve, Zawas, Ningji Migwa, Ningji at Yeto Warrior. A part down ni Chamba Deva. 신라야 대화 당연데 대화된 당연데 수수지 참바 당연 거여와 제가 표조 대외 풍대니 지는 당보파 대화 당 아니 주 동행해야 돼 근데 디니니를 그런 예와요 말 그런 예와 매라다 제르무지
Lama Tsongkhapa states that there is no specific order because it does say to train alternately in taking and giving. So if the focus initially is beings that are down and out, bereft of happiness, you do the love first. But normally one would breathe in first, isn't it? So when you inhale, then you visualize that you are taking on the suffering of all beings. And this is not just a thought. You visualize that you are taking on the suffering of beings. And then that increases your compassion for them, because then you visualize that you've taken on their suffering. And lastly, when you breathe out, you are kasa pa tongdu jumpa. Yeah. So when you breathe out, on the out breath, what's going out is love and the endowment of bliss, happiness for the beings. You know.
우중을 단제 우수 단데 동의 수를 수수주가 자와야 제제도 우파단 대화다 하데 당보 수술라 당고래라 수술라와
self
동래니 뭐 배면지 렘베 쿠는 란에 짬서 당보 수수 동에 수수 배낭 아란저게 수수게다 계산게가 산인게가 도공게가 동에냐 아니죠 봐 수수게 동에디 이제 출len제 당보 수수라 수수 동에래 수수 동에래 수수 되어도 아니 되네 심제 수수 연열에 왜지니 좀 understand 아니 미버 장단데 배 야보여 되라 롱 우중을 된제 지기나
So it would be useful if one can do this practice of taking and giving in conjunction with the breath. But what's important is to start with yourself as a reference point. So starting with your suffering, as it says in the mind training, alternate with taking and giving, but begin the training with yourself. So that means you would take on your own sufferings if you experienced them yesterday, or take on tomorrow's suffering or next week's suffering so you experience it today, and so forth. And then endow yourself with well-being. But then once you've done that with yourself, then you start to address those beings in your surroundings to your left and right. And you start by taking on their suffering, imagining that they're free of suffering. Your compassion increases. Then you send them a well-being of loving kindness. Next question, Gishna.
Yeah.
Can you confirm entering into the middle way requires the following things: renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom? Kaldi umala chukna, rava? Mare. Lam umala chukna, inji minji nechung, chanjugi sem, tongni topilo sumdi gorbest.
lam
umala chukna.
Re. The Tandal then Lam Uma Juxia the Lamdi Tadirva Tony Tanila, Tani, Tajek, Tanila Maleveta, Tani the Teve Lamdil Nego Yorwa, Tagdada Chedaniji, Talamani Lam. Injimiji, Nijung, Tanda Umaljuwe Lam the Jul Lamsinata, the Lamsinizawa in another Nijung Geora.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So really this is entering the middle way is kind of the wisdom part, because it is an understanding of the freedom from the two extremes being permanence and nihilism. But in the true definition of the word, to get a path, you need renunciation. So this, yeah. So chir omala hakona injimiji nechong chanjugisem gomarawa. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So in general, to understand the middle way, you don't need those three, but to have a valid path, to enter into it, you need wisdom, realizing emptiness. So Gisela mentioned that hungry ghosts see each other and animals. Do they see humans or just the food and drink we offer? Kasa tivanangshe idak konza penzun tongurwa chikishik yang idak dundro tong tugurwa. 이다 난저 통그래 난저
이다 그 추 난저 통 난저 파 통고요 말이야 추 통고요 추 통고요 추 통도 통
Hungry ghosts, yes, they can see us, but we cannot see them. Dine 난저 di konzo kalaterwa kalatang penachai drops tena di tong tugre bes konzo
딜라 수수 ngōchena konzo ragiore ngō chokjin tena ragiore chokjin marena ragio mardi chaza shoda dira.
With regards to the food and drink that we offer the hungry spirits, if we bless it, consecrate it, they can partake of it. If not, they cannot.
데 ngoma tanda di jawromchi di luju songsa songjo galra 네 남제 타상 뭐 펠러 남제 타상 타와지 통 헤데다 이달 지인스라
야
이달 지도네 이달도 콘소 칼라서는 콘소 티사와 티 지당도 수당 것도 수디 티디 콘소 티사를 티사가 여러 콘소 안한조 칼라서는 시사요 말 콘소라 치사되게요. 치사연데네 근데 남제자상 타와지다 돈 이달 겨울인스라. 응? 타와신다지기 코란 통구여다. 이게 기승 라인바 미카제 통구래스라. 타와지기 고 통어다. 근데 저 땅아 이달 지에서 땅아 칼라션 라우문도스로 배 메세 갈래도스다. 저거던 아니 데 티자는 뭐잖아. 단다 겨울무지 용지 티자는 뭐잖아. 타와디 쉬도 한간저 타와 처음바되고 이달 제샤스 타고 칼라라고 있으기도 아니 칼라라고 있으기도 가르치고 그래서 티자는 뭐지. 예, 수당 것은 수로 수당.
Yeah.
아니 수당 그래. 수당. 티자는 뭐지 그 수당은 타와디 수당도. 나 산인데 저 칼라라서 무슨 라마선선 알아 칼라 미신다 사도도 기다신다 사도는 알아라문도 아치는 아양자데 되라데 티자는 뭐지 코 칼라라문도 계산 야야 당한서 뭐셔고 코그 민데 코게 체디 인 아디 칼라데 코게 체디 인스 라우다 코 칼라데 라도 아니 네 돈인데 다 되는다 빼 칼라다 아 저거 빼 자서 빼면서 야고 중서 어딘데게 로유딘데 요래다.
There's a story to highlight this previously in Tibet. His Holiness has told this story. There was a monk that died, Namgyal monk in Tibet, and was subsequently born as a hungry ghost, a craving spirit. Now, they don't eat food like we eat food and drink. They live off smells. They are called smell eaters. So there is a practice called sur, which feeds them. So that monk that was born as a hungry ghost, there was another monk in the monastery that could see those craving ghosts, as I mentioned yesterday. Some can see them. And that monk that was born as a hungry ghost said to that other monk, help me, it's very difficult to get food. I can't find any food. And the monk wasn't sure what to do, so they asked His Holiness's junior tutor, Tridang Rinpoche, so-and-so has been born as a hungry spirit. What should we do to feed that hungry ghost? So they did. They dedicated this practice. They did this practice where they offer sur, is it barley? Type of barley flour. And then next day they asked that hungry ghost, or the monk asked the hungry ghost, so did you get your food that we offered? And he replied, no, I didn't. Well, the other hungry ghosts got it. So then Tridang Rinpoche said, right, next time we'll do it, we'll dedicate it specifically for that person, with his name, for that spirit. And then he got it. So that highlights that they can get it if it's dedicated.
알아서 신이 아니 저 발돌랜드 취사도 지고래. 델라 이달라고요 말이야. 그래. 뒤에 칼라드 취사고요. 뒤 발도대 간주치 통고요. 간주파 통고요 말이야. 지구지기한테.
Right. So when we die and enter into the bardo state, we will be like those hungry ghosts in that we live off smells. And those bardo beings could see us, but we could not see them. That experience of that, we will have to wait until we die. And we'll go, oh, it's like this.
발도디 람냠네치에 열어라. 당배초나 슈나 캡사망고 열다.
Yeah, so it is the reality when we die, we have to take a birth. So then that's the bardo, the intermediate state comes, doesn't it? So it's not sure. Yeah, so where one is going in that state, no one is sure. But anyway, there's a path or a practice within Buddhism that you can actually do practices for beings in that state. So Buddha Dharma has lots of prophets like that. Yeah, next question. The problem of poverty. The problem of poverty seem underdeveloped. If the wealthy class of the world were genuinely being rewarded for the good past lives, it is that generosity is supposedly swelled, so lacking as evidenced by the world, the very riches. The problem of poverty seems underdeveloped. Maybe that means that we aren't understanding poverty. If yeah,
The problem of poverty seems underdeveloped.
right.
To me, it does.
Okay, so if the wealthy us of the world were genuinely being rewarded for the good of past lives we have lived, how is it that the generosity of the supposedly first world?
Yeah,
First world is so lacking, as is evidenced by the awful poverty of the third world? Okay. The very riches and that's the second question coming.
Well, it's a commentary on the very richest seem to be the most avaricious, greedy.
Oh, okay. So the question, why, you're asking why is that so, that second question?
Yeah, if wealth is a consequence of past karma.
If they were generous in a past life and they got rich, why aren't they generous now?
Leon, okay, gisla. Tenganzo di dirwa nganzo, oni chene nganzo chukporwa nganzo. Nganzo rang chukporwa. Oni chene di kewanyo mala tene nganzo jimbagi drebo minsarwa ne. Yinayang zambling nang latada. Mi chukpo mambu ye. Chukpo yinkin denzo. Jimba mendua konzo sim sangbola mi shambala rokba che mendua di kariana. They are miserly.
Jimbe longjo tane donge na gyobu sudne kangbo nyele ji geje ngudu yonse sewa ne chinje tela longjo chumi ju
Okay,
da danga zo de umaju be tisto
sigdo
odere da jimbe longjo tane ro ane tanda ngazo jimba tang mi chubu do so da millennia do so chubu cha de ora gyo ngama jimba tang ba ge debu res ro
yeah
da tsetela da de longje je ane jimba madam ina 아니 나란도 페나 나란도 무 빼샤로 페나 나란도 무여 버체로 아니 무여 버체제 아니 무디 무가 나라야 죽샤위나 나란도 개가사요로 개가사제 아니 무디 조야치는 요 말아봤다 지금 뭐 무트네 단이지나 무디 무가 나라샤 아니 개가 당제 되니이나 미디 무 조야치는 요 말아다 다디 짐바 단이들에 다 짐바 마단이 되가서나 무가 나라 마사오시제 무디 다 배주 당샤고요다 아니 미들라 제가요 말에 무디 팔아요 말에 아니 체데라 디 롱조 첨부시네 겨와치마 롱조 연구요 말에 어디래다 가시 겨와치마 고문도 체다가라라 당보 밀레니아 차제는 방고 차르고도 알아 교부 차르는데 누가 체다가라네 통해도 알아 제가 어디래대
This is addressed in the text on page 2, third line, third verse down. The arising and bad migrations of resources from giving is due to a being's losing his legs of ethics. Having spent completely both principle and interest, he will be without resources in the future. You know, the people that are rich now in this life, that is a result of them having been generous in past lives, be they millionaires, billionaires, or whatever. But if they don't continue to give, if they don't continue to give and they use up their wealth, then they will cease to be wealthy in the future. It would be like putting money in a bank. So you put money in the bank for safekeeping and you use it from time to time, but you keep feeding the money into the bank. So there are those that put money in the bank, but they don't keep feeding it, so it's constantly going down. Inangishla Jacob Kaushikla Pichu Kyopo Yorba. Nganzo Jacob Din Nangshin Kyopo Yomarwa. Nganzo Chukpo Yobi Lambi Yorba. Your question's more about the disparity between the rich and poor countries, isn't it? You're asking karmically why that is?
Well, those countries are made up of people, and those people control pretty much how things happen, but we seem to be somewhat greedy collectively, and almost.
Well, as rich countries, you mean we're greedy collectively?
Yes, and we're unconcerned.
About poor countries?
Yeah.
Ale, nonzo lomba chukpoyin so mi Jordan dan demba yena. Mi Jordan mayimba lomba kyopo denzo. Yewa to drop shirwa. Okay, oh my. Dikarina. We don't care. Because we don't have compassion. We don't care for them. Yeah, if we really had compassion for those poor countries, we would send and we'd do things about it.
아니야, 지단 티어래. 미 교보드절에 코란저 소남지 롱조용야게 매나 로보 가서 제셔나 요요 말라 요 말다.
But there's another point. Those beings that are poor, they are in fact lacking in merit. And even if you tried to help them, you couldn't. There is that too.
다 이나가나서 로고 치tum나네 야고 요르바 오네 수수 김바당토이나 아니 오네게다 무가나라 무샤바데 직바레와 아니 짐바마담베이나 아니 무가나가 무디 제가 매베토네 무다 무수수 베지 당샤나 안 조르고다 아다 지나시 차마란저 만저 당당한저 베미시 야고레 간조 사주통 요콘주 상마도 베 등진 상부도 와라 다때때지 요데 짐바당라도 시우 자침보던데 그렇지 지기 치우라 칼라데야로 당도 아직 진지 tundu라 칼라데야로 근데 다 밀로 와치도는 야셔로 미교에 년로 와치도는 야고셔로 되면은 tundu다 된데라 짐바당도 이나 세단 된데 짐바당도나 야고여로
We should try and help others if we can, those that are down and out. But also we need to keep being generous, like keep feeding the money in the bank, as the analogy was given. When we think about it, we are actually extremely fortunate in our situation. We have what we need to eat and drink and so forth. So then we can share. We can be generous to those around us, particularly animals, birds, humans that are poor, and feed them. That's it, I think, for the questions.
Oh yeah. That's the same though.
Ole. Sunny.
Joshi, 그래서 drilling 열봐.
Yeah.
Drilling 네 디직체션에 고도하던다디 연라düğün 세대 전 차세원에 맞아 연라düğün디 가르가리 이미지 시에나 야고 열어
Yes.
간델라 제디나라도 연라düğün디 직시 아니 되네 한당한저 디시트로송아 풍몽아 데려와 풍몽아데 아니 가르가리 이미지 아니 풍몽하고 간 데네 대가 나세야지 간데 다디 야부시행으로 대신에 안에 산인나니 가서다 동반이 거기 시행으로다 지시원도 다 싫어들이 대 야고지신 부모가 안 되더라서는 아니 진소 파진 쪽되네 막 기생 진바다 수dim서라다 서버다 준주다 삼대 조tum나래 도마도나 샤샤나 산인에 되어대대 접촉으로 아데 디그레 드릴링 디디라
For discussion then, it would be good to go over the 7 limbs. Beginning with the homage limb, or as they're laid out in the practice we did, Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. It is good to go over again the 5 aggregates. What are they? And how they act as the basis for the designation of the person, the I or self. It's good to know them, because as we go through the text tomorrow on emptiness, that is important. And then if you have time, going through these 6 perfections. We did begin with generosity yesterday and we touched on ethics. So go through further patience, effort, concentration, and so on. If you have time. If not, we can do it tomorrow. Now we dissolve the... So this is... We should tell them where we are.
On page 57 of... Beginning with our glorious and precious root guru.
Glorious and precious root guru, Come take your lotus and mean seat placed here upon my head,
and keep me safe in your great kindness. Bestow on me, please, the powerful attainments of your body, speech, and mind. O glorious and precious root Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat at my heart, and keep me safe in your great kindness. Remain steadfast until I achieve Buddhahood. By this merit may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha, and may I lead unto that state every being without exception. And now turning to page 31 in the other book for the short mandala.
Oshin Chushin Me Tong Tram, Ri Rap Min Shin Ni Te Kem Pati,
Sangye Shindu Mi Te Uwali, Drogu Nanda Shimla Chupa Sho, Jetsa Lama Kunze Rate Shin, Naga Jinle Choju Dewa Dam, Lo Zang Timbe Dron Me Satsun Fi, Drue Musu Tabu Ne Guji. And to the separate page 33, prayers of dedication. Due to the merit of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the precious view of emptiness not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Whatever slight positive potential I may have created, by paying homage, offering and acknowledging my faults, rejoicing and requesting that the Buddha stay and teach